Warning, this show may contain biased opinions regarding the Southeastern Conference, and college football fans that don't meet these criteria are cautioned, for this program may show outrageous and extreme takes.
In 1892, many historic events took place in the United States. Ellis Island in New York started receiving immigrants into the U.S. The Pledge of Allegiance was first recited in unison by students. The first official basketball game was played. And most importantly, a football game was played between the University of Georgia and Auburn University in what would be known as the Deep South's oldest rivalry. The Georgia Bulldogs and Auburn Tigers would grow together to become two powerhouse programs. Though they are on different sides of the SEC, they still play annually today.
It is tipped off, and Lewis got it on the deflection. Lewis is going to score. Touchdown, Auburn! A miracle to turn the hair.
Corner again, and we jump up. Touchdown! Oh God, a touchdown in the corner!
Look where the ball's thrown, right to the corner, right at Uga. The watch Baker, he almost gets bit by Uga. Get away from me, man!
And now the fire hoses are coming out to try to get the fans off the field. It's a little chilly to be getting drenched down there.
Most of my research from this video came from Douglas Stutsman's book, The Deep South's Oldest Rivalry, Auburn vs. Georgia. If you find this video interesting, definitely make sure to go check out his book. At the time I made this video, Auburn and Georgia had played each other 125 times. This game has been played yearly since the 1900s, with the exception of 1917 and 1918 because of World War I and 1943 due to World War II. Though it used to be a neutral site game, getting played throughout the states of Alabama and Georgia, the game is now played at each team's respective campuses, changing each season. Georgia is actually known for being one of the first big schools to play at Auburn's campus. With their facilities lacking at the time, most of the larger schools would force Auburn to either play at their stadium or at a neutral site location. Georgia was one of the first colleges to play at Auburn, bringing big-time football to the Tigers campus. This was a major proponent in Auburn's future growth into the program they are today. This series is currently the second most played rivalry in the FBS. Many times in the past, this game has been a determining factor in both teams playing for championships. The two schools are about 170 miles away from each other, which means they're typically recruiting the same players and coaches that come to their schools. In Stutsman's book, many people describe the rivalry as two brothers fighting. They like each other until they have to play each other. Former Auburn athletic director David Housel said, "When Auburn and Georgia play, it's like brothers fighting. When Auburn and Alabama play, it's like in-laws fighting." Okay, now we get it. In-laws in the state of Alabama are notoriously very close to one another. We're going to be going through some of the rivalry's more exciting games, starting with their first matchup, played on February 20th, 1892 in Atlanta, Georgia. The game wasn't the most exciting, but Auburn did upset a confident Georgia team, beating them 10-0. Some notable events from the game included one of the theories of the creation of War Eagle. Supposedly, an Auburn professor who had been a Civil War soldier was in the stands that day, who had a pet eagle that they found injured on a battlefield during the war. The eagle supposedly broke free during the game and began circling around the field with the crowd chanting, "War Eagle!" The eagle was also said to have crashed into the field and died during the game. Another thing that may have happened during the game was that Georgia at the time had a pet mascot that was a live goat. Well, apparently, Georgia fans ended up barbecuing the goat and eating him after the game because they were so upset that their season just got ruined by Auburn. In another matchup in 1899, their game ended 0-0 after the field got too dark to play on. Since there were no lights on the field at the time, both coaches agreed to call the game a tie. One of the first seasons where you could start to see this game turn into a rivalry is in 1956. In the first quarter, Georgia's QB, Billy Hearn, was injured after a hard hit from two Auburn players. On the next play, Georgia's backup threw an interception, and during that play, some Georgia linemen started a fist fight with Auburn's defense. Then the entire team started fighting each other. For the rest of the game, there'd be small fights here and there as things started to get chippy. Auburn would end up winning the game 20-0. The 50s and 60s would have coaches that had ties to both schools. Auburn's coach Ralph Jordan coached the Tigers from 1951 to 1975. Jordan also played football, basketball, and baseball at Auburn and would also be an assistant football coach and head basketball coach at Georgia in the 40s. Vince Dooley was a famous Auburn quarterback who would later be a legendary Georgia Bulldog coach from 1964 to 1988. In the early 80s, you had both Bo Jackson and Herschel Walker facing off against each other, two giants. Georgia won the game in 1982, 19-14, with Georgia broadcaster Larry Munson giving his famous hunker down call.
Auburn trying to break our hearts here. 19-14 and the Dogs lead. Again, you guys, hunker down. I hate to keep saying it, but hunker down. You didn't hear me, you guys, hunker down. I know I'm asking a lot, you guys, but hunker it down one more time. End zone, and the Dogs broke it up. They broke it up. They broke it up. I won't ask you to do that again, you guys.
In the next season, in 1983, Auburn upset a strong Georgia team 13-7 to win their first SEC championship in 26 years. Georgia was fighting for their fourth SEC championship in a row at the time. Coaching this Auburn team would be Pat Dye, who also played for Georgia while in college. In the 1986 matchup, Georgia upset Auburn, beating them 20-16. After the game, Bulldog fans rushed to the field to celebrate. Not only that, fans started ripping out the turf, trying to take home some of the grass. Auburn's ground crew was then told to turn the sprinklers on the fans, and that's exactly what they did.
Now the fire hoses are coming out to try to get the fans off the field. It's a little chilly to be getting drenched down there. But the Georgia fans probably aren't going to mind. They just wanted to go out there and celebrate.
I don't think you could ask for more in a football game. Those last two drives, Auburn, that just isn't their style of play. Drive 99 yards throwing the ball. They came back and almost put it in again. Just a great game.
Georgia fans being chased off.
Quarterback Jeff Berger had a story about his recruiting process when he visited Georgia in high school. His dream as a kid was to play for Coach Dooley and the Dogs. Once he got to campus, he noticed that they had about 11 quarterbacks practicing at the time. Wanting to make sure he was making the right decision, he asked Coach Dooley straight up how many quarterbacks he was planning on bringing on that season. He told Berger, "Son, if you're scared of competition, then Georgia might not be the place for you." An embarrassed Berger left, unsure what he should do. He would later commit to the Auburn Tigers. After Auburn beat Georgia 27-11 in the 1987 matchup, quarterback Jeff Berger walked up to Georgia's Coach Dooley and said, "Coach, never been scared of competition. Good game." In the 1992 matchup, Auburn was driving down the field in the final minute of the game, trying to take the lead. With 19 seconds on the clock, they ran the ball on the goal line, expecting to at least get a chance to spike the ball. After the play, Georgia players kicked the ball away from where the action was. At the time, the defense could not get a delay of game penalty called on them. While the refs searched for the ball, time ran out. Fans stayed in their seats for a long time, confused at what just happened, and Auburn fans started throwing trash on the field as they found out they were getting screwed out of the game. A similar thing would later happen to Georgia in 2001, when new coach Mark Richt tried to call a timeout when he didn't even have one. They were unable to get the playoff at the end of the game before time ran out, and they ended up losing. In '94, Georgia tied Auburn to end the Tigers' 20-game win streak and keep them from winning a national title. In 1996, UGA 5 almost bit Auburn receiver Robert Baker. It was also the first SEC game ever to go into overtime. Georgia ended up winning the game after 4 overtimes, 56-49. In 2002, Georgia was trailing 21-17 with 1:25 left in the game. On 4th and 15, Georgia's David Green threw up a prayer pass to receiver Michael Johnson. Johnson would come down with the ball, helping Georgia win 24-21. Johnson had only had 11 receptions so far that season, but in that game, he had 13 receptions for 141 yards.
Snap to David Green. There he goes in the corner again, and we jump up. Touchdown! Oh, God, a touchdown! In the corner! With 85 seconds, somebody went up high. Was it Watson or Gibson? Michael Johnson up high. We're trying to put glasses on it, and they stagger down into the screen and the fence in the corner. Michael Johnson turned around and got up in the air. We caught the ball.
Before targeting was a thing, players used to be able to literally take the head off of players. In 2004, Auburn's Junior Rosegreen hit Georgia's Reggie Brown dangerously, knocking him unconscious, which later sent him to the hospital with a concussion. In 2006, a 6-4 Georgia team upset Auburn, who was undefeated and ranked 5th in the country, fighting to play for a national title. They ended up whipping on Auburn 37-15, with Trey Battle racking in not 1, not 2, but 3 interceptions for the day. The 2007 game, Georgia had a blackout night. It was the first time Georgia had worn black jerseys in the modern era. With only the seniors on the team knowing what was going on, he had the team warm up in their regular red jerseys. They would then go into the locker room for their team prayer, where they turned off the lights while everyone was praying. During the prayer, they swapped the jerseys in everyone's locker, and once they turned the lights back on, the players exploded in joy. That, along with the Soulja Boy song, supposedly hyped the team up enough to beat Auburn that night, 45-20. In 2010, the Auburn Tigers were riddled with controversy, as their quarterback, Cam Newton, and his father were accused of receiving money from a booster. People were unsure whether or not he would be allowed to play in his last home game against rival Georgia. The NCAA eventually allowed him to play, and you can just see here how excited Newton and the fans were because of that.
No comment. Cameron Newton.
In a very chippy game, the Tigers ended up beating Georgia 49-31. Coming into college, Nick Marshall had been a cornerback for Georgia, where he was nicknamed Dr. Death. He would later be dismissed from the team for alleged theft. After that, he decided to play JUCO ball and moved from cornerback to quarterback. He would eventually sign with Auburn, where he would get his chance for payback against the Dogs. They killed Georgia for most of the game, even being up by 20 points in the fourth quarter. But Georgia would later come back and even take the lead to go up 38-37. With less than 2 minutes left in the game, Nick Marshall had one last chance to take down his former school. On 4th and 18, Marshall would end up doing this.
All right, here we go. 4th and 18 for the Tigers. Here's your ball game. Nick Marshall stands in, steps up, he's going to throw downfield, just a home run ball, and it is tipped off.
And Lewis caught it on the deflection. Lewis is going to score. Lewis is going to score. Lewis is going to score. Touchdown Auburn. Touchdown Auburn. A miracle in Jordan-Hare. A miracle in Jordan-Hare. 73 yards, and the Tigers with 25 seconds to go.
Auburn would go on to win the game 43-38 and would later lose in the national championship that season. In one of their last great matchups, in 2017, Auburn and Georgia would end up playing each other twice in the same season. In their first matchup, the number 10 ranked Tigers beat the number 1 ranked Bulldogs 40-17. They would later play again in the SEC championship game, where Georgia would end up beating them 28-7. As of today, Georgia has not lost to Auburn since that 2017 season. The SEC has tons of great rivalries, and this one ranks among one of the tops for sure. It doesn't get much better than two great teams from the South, with hardcore fan bases lining up each season to beat the crap out of each other. There is no better feeling than beating your neighbor and crushing their hopes and dreams. Like I said earlier, this matchup has been compared to two brothers fighting, and I don't know anyone who wouldn't love to beat up on their brother. Thank you for watching this episode. Please make sure to like, subscribe, or comment. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter in the links below. I will see you next time on the College Football History Channel.